We have texts.
Yeah.
So I see some new people. So alla förstår engelska? Everybody speaks English? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can speak English.
You speak English? Mm. You're Swedish originally? No.
No, I'm from Bosnia.
Bosnia, but you understand English?
Yes.
Okay, good. It's always a compromise which language to use. So we are going to sing a song which is called Radha Madhava, and how it functions is that I sing one line and then you repeat after me, and then I sing next, and so on. Okay? For those who are here the first time. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Raja Janarandana Yashodanandana Raja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Raja Janarandana Yashodanandana Raja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari go. Hare Krishna, everybody. So today we are continuing to study the Sri Isopanisad. Isopanisad, yes.
Yesterday we were in the park, had a little kirtan.
Yeah.
And we met this person here, Alma.
Yeah,
You know, and now she's here today. It's fantastic.
she greeted us.
Yeah.
This is the power of Sankirtan.
Yeah, she was sitting in the park bench and looking and, you know.
Most welcome.
Yes, thank you very much.
So we are reading from this book, which is called Sri Isopanisad. Isha means the Supreme Lord in Sanskrit, and Upanishad means, there's little different translations, means to sitting near a spiritual master. So Upanishads is a series of philosophical writings which are part of the Vedic literature. Actually, today, before I get into the verse, it's a special day which is called Guru Purnima. Did you know about this? Guru Purnima. And also, but it's Srila Vyasadeva appearance day. So actually, it's a special day. If you want, also you can go out in the evening and we'll see the moon. The moon will be completely orange today, but it's a special day in our calendar, which commemorates the appearance of a personality called Vyasadeva, Vyasa. And what is special about Vyasadeva, he compiled all the Vedas. So this is one Upanishad. There is 108 of them. This is one of the smallest ones. And Vyasadeva was a very extraordinary personality. One thing which is interesting, he didn't know how to write. And this maybe sounds a little strange for us modern people, but in the time these scriptures were written, which is about 5,000 years ago, people didn't need to read or write because they heard one book and they remembered it forever. So Srila Vyasadeva, he wrote all the Vedas. I don't know if you have any Bhagavad Gita here. You have a Bhagavad Gita? There it is. So like for instance, this book, Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, this means the Song of God. So it's a book about the science of reincarnation, yoga, our relationship with God. It's our, I would say, in the Hare Krishna movement, this is our basic book. So this book, it has like 700 pages. And this is one chapter of another book which is called Mahabharata. I don't know how many, 800 chapters Mahabharata around. So this is one chapter. And this is one of the Vedic literatures. There is, as I said before, there is 108 Upanishads. There is other scriptures called Puranas. Anyway, just strange names. But the volume, like compared maybe with other religions, the volume of these philosophical books, it's enormous. It's enormous. It's almost impossible for one person to read everything in one lifetime. So many, such was the production. So Srila Vyasadeva, he didn't know how to read or how to write. But because he was a sage, a saintly person, he was understanding that people are getting, the memory of people is becoming worse and worse. They cannot remember the whole Bhagavad Gita when they hear it. they start to forget one verse here and there. And memory is becoming worse, so he thought it's important that we're going to put this down in writing. So, because he didn't know how to write, he had to find somebody. And there is a personality whose name is Ganesh. I don't know if we have a picture here. You have a picture of Ganesh? No. I actually have one Ganesh in my car, which I got as a present. But Ganesh is what in Sweden they call the elephant guden. So it's a son of Lord Shiva, and he has an elephant head. We're not going to get into that, but he has an elephant head. So Vyasadeva asked Ganesh, because Ganesh was a very good writer. So Ganesh said, I'm very busy. Already in those days, people were very busy. So he said, I'm very busy, but I can help you if you don't stop. You dictate all the Vedas, just one after the other, and I will write everything, and then we'll be finished, and I can go to my next thing I have to do. So Srila Vyasadeva told him, that's okay, but you cannot go from one verse to another without understanding what you have written. So you write, and when you have understood, you write the next. So when Srila Vyasadeva had to think what to dictate, he just said something very difficult. And Ganesh had to stop, and Vyasadeva could think and dictate. So Srila Vyasadeva dictated all these books from memory, which is, it's not imaginable for us. And these books are divided in different categories. This category of books, which I'm going to speak about today, they are called the Upanishads. And they are the more philosophical parts of the Vedic literatures. Our guru, who started the Hare Krishna movement, whose name is Prabhupada, he translated many books from Sanskrit to English. So one of them is Bhagavad Gita, which is our basic book. The Isopanisad was one of the first he translated. It's a very philosophical book, very short, very compact, but also one of the most important because it gives us an understanding of God, the nature of God. Many religions, they demand that you accept that there is a God, and they don't bother so much explaining the characteristics of God. But in our tradition, which comes from India, from the Vedas, there is very detailed descriptions about the nature of God. How God looks like, what He's doing, how He relates to the world, how the world is created, how the world is destroyed, how we all living entities, not only humans, but all living entities, including animals and plants, how we relate to God, how the universe is composed. So these literatures are very, very special. Okay, so we're going to read this verse. I hope it's not too heavy because it's a little bit philosophical, but so this is 18 verses. The first verses, which you already have studied here, they explain us that two things. First of all, that everything is owned by the Lord. Everything belongs to the Lord. As there is a common saying, we are born without anything. When we are born, we have nothing. Of course, there are people born sometimes to rich parents. They have a lot. But, it doesn't... You come naked, you come without anything, and you leave this world in the same way. So, everything that we are using here in this world is borrowed. Yeah? We don't own anything. So this is the first part of the Isopanisad, explains that the Lord is the owner of everything, and we should try to live in harmony with God. So now in the second part, we're going to discuss the characteristics of God. So there is a verse in Sanskrit. I will read just it for myself, and then we can repeat. Anejade kan manaso jivayo naina deva apnovam purvamasat tadhavato anyan natyati tishtat tasminapo matarishvadadhati. So now I read the Sanskrit word and you can repeat, and I will say the English translation, the words of this verse. So you please repeat after me. Anejat, fixed. Ekam, one. Manasa, then the mind. Javya, more swift. Na, not. Enat, this Supreme Lord. Devaha, the demigods like Indra, etc. Apnovam, can approach. Purvam, in front. Ashat, moving quickly. Tat, he. Dhavata, those who are running. Anyan, others. Atyeti, surpasses. Tishtat, remaining in one place. Tasmin, in him. Apaha, rain. Matarishva, the demigods who control the wind and the rain. The Dhati, supply. So the translation of all of this, which was written originally in Sanskrit, is: although fixed in his abode, the personality of Godhead is swifter than the mind and can overcome all others running. The powerful demigods cannot approach him. Although in one place, he controls those who supply the air and the rain. He surpasses all in excellence. So there is a purport here. So the Supreme Lord, let me see my notes here. The Supreme Lord, who is the absolute personality of Godhead, cannot be known by mental speculation, even by the greatest philosophers. He can be known only by his devotees through his mercy. In Brahma Samhita, which is another book from the Vedas, it is stated that even if a non-devotee philosopher travels at the speed of the mind for hundreds of years, he will still find the absolute truth far, far away from him. As described in the Isopanisad, the absolute personality of Godhead has his transcendental abode known as Krishna Locan, where he remains and engages in his pastimes. Yet, by his inconceivable potencies, he can simultaneously reach every part of his creative energy. In Vishnu Purana, which is another book, his potencies are compared to the heat and light that emanate from fire. Although situated in one place, a fire can distribute its light and heat all over. Similarly, the absolute personality of Godhead, although fixed in his transcendental abode, can diffuse his different energies everywhere. So here in this first paragraph is preparing us for the fact that we will not be able to understand God by logic. Some logic we can use, but we will not be able to understand everything by logic. Like if we try to understand how was the universe created, it's actually impossible. There was nothing, and all of a sudden there is a universe. It's impossible, isn't it? I mean, who decided? Okay, God decided, but according to logic, I mean, who created God? Where was he? where did he get matter from? You know, it's a lot of complicated questions, even we get to the origin of the universe. Of course, the scientists try to make it simple by saying there was a little point, because I think if there is one point, there is not so much to explain. We start with a point, and then they say everything was concentrated there. It's a little bit, I always found this, even when I was young and I was in school, I found this a little bit childish. I mean, why is it more logic to start from a point where everything is concentrated, the whole mass of the universe, than to say something else? But anyway, this is how they say. But very difficult to understand. So, the reason why it is very difficult to understand, it's because the supreme truth is subtle. Like for instance, we are here, a few people. Very difficult for us to understand what another person is thinking. What is in my mind? Maybe in my mind is, you can understand because I'm trying to explain this. But if you look at another person in general, of course you have features, and nowadays there is also some kind of a science almost, which they can detect when people are lying, you know, like criminals. It's called statement analysis. You know, they analyze what somebody says, and depending on the way they say and they explain it, the investigator will be able to know if this person is telling the truth or not. They use this very successfully with criminals. But in general, if you are not an expert, you cannot understand really what is in a person's mind. Of course, maybe a little bit of the expression, but there is also something which they call poker face. You know, when people are playing poker, they don't show if they have good cards or not. It's called poker face. So, and then you cannot understand actually what's going on in the mind of the person. So the mind is very subtle. You cannot see it, and to understand the mind is very difficult. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is swifter. Swifter, it means faster. So even if we can move very quickly from one concept to the other and try to understand who is God, how he is, how he looks like, and so on, still the concept of God will evade us. So by mental speculation, by using our mind and intelligence, it can help us. It can give us a little hint, but it cannot bring us to complete knowledge of God. How can it give us a little hint? For instance, we look how this world is arranged. Yeah? And of course there is this theory of evolution, and there is a Big Bang. But these explanations, they are not satisfactory, because like if you look at the human body, you have like, I think it's, I don't know, how many trillions of cells? Anyway, we say a number. There's 10 trillions of cells. Okay? I mean, 10 trillions, it's a lot. It's it's 10, how many, with 15 zeros. So we have many cells in our body, and they are all different. You know, there is the eye, and there is lids, there is hair, there is stomach, there is lungs, there is, I mean, it's so differentiated. So if you look at the human body, and if you try to use your intelligence objectively, I mean, you must come to the conclusion there is some purpose here. I mean, this cannot come out of the Big Bang, out of chance. It must be some, I mean, there is some idea here, you know. You chew the food, it goes to the stomach digests, you know, it takes to the blood, it gives nourishment, it creates strength, etc., etc. So even if you analyze the logic of how this body is functioning and how this body is built, you must understand there is some intelligence organizing this. So to a certain extent, we can use logic to understand God, but we'll never be able to understand, how did God create the universe? Where is God situated? Where we come from? What happens when we die? There is so many things we cannot understand. But some things we can understand by intelligence, and it's a good beginning in spiritual life that we question. Where all this universe come from? Why am I here? Will everything be finished at death? I'm just a bunch of chemicals. Is there something inside me which is not chemical? So these are important questions which you can use our intelligence to understand. So this inconceivable potency. So here it says the Supreme Lord is situated in one place. And here it's described there is a planet in the spiritual world, which is called Krishna Loca, where Krishna is situated. But the example is given here like fire. You may have a fire in the middle of the park. People make Mai Brasa. They make a fire in the 1st of May. And even if you are not in touch with the fire, if you are 10 or 100 meters from this fire, still you feel the heat of the fire, because the fire emanates this energy. So in the same way, even if the Supreme Lord is situated in the spiritual world, his energy is emanating and permeating the whole creation. So this is not so difficult to understand. So although situated in one place, a fire can distribute its light and heat all over. Similarly, the absolute personality of Godhead, although fixed in his transcendental abode, can diffuse his different energies everywhere. So now we'll go to the next paragraph. Although his energies are innumerable, they can be divided into three principal categories: the internal potency, the marginal potency, and the external potency. There are hundreds and millions of subheadings of each of these categories. The dominating demigods who are empowered to control and administer natural phenomena such as air, light, rain, etc. are all classified within the marginal potency of the Absolute Truth. Living beings, including humans, are also products of the Lord's marginal potency. The material world is the creation of the Lord's external potency, and the spiritual sky or kingdom of God is the manifestation of his internal potency. So this may be a little bit difficult for a beginner, for a person who is not familiar with Vedic philosophy, but what it says basically here is that God has three energies. So he has one energy which is called the internal energy, and by this energy he maintains the spiritual world. So according to the Vedas, beyond everything that we see here in this material world, we accept that there is another world, a spiritual world, where everything is eternal. So this spiritual world is called Krishna's internal potency. We, the living entities, are called the marginal potency. So marginal potency, we can say they are all the souls in the universe, all the living entities. This is called the marginal potency. And the external potency, this is the dead matter, so to say, which is not always so dead. So God has God has more energies, but these are the three first divisions: internal, which is the spiritual world; marginal, which is us, all the souls, all the living entities; and the external, which is matter. So the energies of the Lord are present everywhere through his different potencies. Although there is no difference between the Lord and his energies, one should not wrongly consider that the Supreme Lord is distributed everywhere impersonally, or that he loses his personal existence. Men are accustomed to reach conclusions according to their capacity to understand, but the Supreme Lord is not subject to our limited capacity for understanding. It is for this reason that the Upanishads warn us that no one can approach the Lord by his own limited potency. So here again it is said that, okay, maybe we have difficult to understand how God is situated in one place and still controlling the whole universe. But actually nowadays, in the modern world, you can even see that. There is somebody by a computer or some other device, and he is controlling so many things, like traffic lights. Traffic lights are controlled by a program. It's a mathematical program. You control the flows, and you can change the flows. And people driving the car, they don't know. They say, oh, red light. But beyond this red light, there is a program. There is somebody controlling that. So similarly, in the universe, so many things maybe seem, we don't understand them, or we may be thinking they're happening by chance, or bad luck, or good luck. But behind all of that, there is the plan of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that not even great rishis and suras can know him, and what to speak of the asuras, who are not even qualified to understand the ways of the Lord. So this fourth mantra very clearly suggests that the absolute truth is ultimately the absolute person. Otherwise, there would have been no need to mention so much variegatedness in support of his personal features. So now here comes one important point. Okay, God is situated in one place and controlling so many energies, but who is actually God? Is God an impersonal energy, or is it a person? So here it's also time to utilize our own logic, because if us who emanate from God are persons, yeah, we are persons. We are all different individuals. How can it be that God is just an energy? Because whatever is in the creation must be at least in a seed form in the origin. So this is a very important point in the Vedic philosophy, that God is a personality, is a person. And person, we can define it in many ways, very complicated. Very simple, we can say thinking, feeling, and willing. Okay, this is the characteristics of a person which distinguish the living entity, a person, from matter or from impersonal energy. So thinking, feeling, and willing, these things are there in God. Although they have all the symptoms of the Lord in himself, the individual parts and parcels of the Lord's potencies have limited spheres of activities and are therefore all limited. So this says basically something which is also said in the Bible, that we are created at the image of God. So God is a person, we are a person. God has thoughts, he thinks, we are also thinking. God has feelings, we also have feelings. God has a will, a desire, we also have that. But the difference is that these actions in God, they are performed in an unlimited way. You know, like God, when God desires something, you know, the chain of events which that desire is able to to cover is unlimited. Like God created the universe. You know, so many consequences of that, creating the universe, the desire to create the universe. So this is also an important point in the Vedic philosophy, that God is a person, we are persons. The difference is we are limited, God is unlimited. So the parts and parcels are never equal to the whole. Therefore, they cannot appreciate the Lord's full potency. So, so this means that our vision and our understanding of the world is by our own nature. We are limited, so that understanding is also limited. You know, like when one travels between different countries, one may think that some things are obvious in Sweden and some other things are obvious in other places. Just because people who live there, they are used to certain things. You know, like if you go to a German Autobahn, and if you come from Sweden, it's a nightmare because it's unlimited cars and they're all driving 150. But for them, it's normal. So our knowledge is very much based on our surroundings, what we see, what we have experienced in life, how did we grow up, how we perceive the world. And to understand the whole, this is going to require something else, which we will see a little bit later in this verse. Under the influence of material nature, foolish and ignorant living beings who are but parts and parcels of the Lord try to conjecture about the Lord's transcendental position. Sri Isopanisad warns of the futility in trying to establish the identity of the Lord through mental speculation. One should try to learn the transcendence from a superior source like the Vedas, which already contain knowledge of transcendence. So here it says that if we want to understand God, we cannot just use our mind. We can use our intelligence and inquisitive, but by just using our mind without help, we cannot come to a full understanding of God. And sometimes we use this example. You want to become a doctor. So you go to the shop, you buy all the medical books. It will tell you how you operate the stomach. You cut here, 0.75 millimeters. And then, then you use another tool to cut the next layer, etc., etc. I have studied medicine 1 week. So I know this. So different tools you take, and then you come to the place you want to operate, and then you cut this and you cut that, you sew, you stop the blood. So you can read all these things in books. But would you go to such a doctor who just has read in the book? Will you? This is a rhetoric question. Nobody will go to such a doctor. So, actually, there is a funny story in relation to, it's not doctors, but there is a veterinarian. There is one boy, he was learning, he wanted to become a veterinarian, so he was an apprentice. He was working with another veterinarian. And once they went to see a horse, and this horse has a huge lump in the neck. And so the veterinarian, he takes a little rubber hammer, he hits this bump, and the horse becomes good. The lump disappears, it's dissolved, so everything okay. So then the veterinarian was not there, he was gone on some other job, and somebody called and said, my horse has a bump. And the boy who was learning from the doctor said, okay, I will come immediately, I know how to fix it. So took his hammer, and he came there, and he saw this big lump on the horse's neck, and he hit it, and the horse died. So the boy went back and asked the doctor, what happened? You hit the neck of the horse, and the horse became good, and I hit, and the horse died. And he said, yes, because you don't understand what I'm doing. The horse where I went, he had swallowed a watermelon. He had a watermelon in the throat, and I had to break it. But the horse which you tried to cure, it had some kind of a tumor. So you have to cut it, take it out. So the thing is that in order to understand any type of science, we have to go to an expert. So this is the same thing in spiritual science. When we try to understand spirit, we are trying to understand God, our relationship with God, we need help. By just thinking and speculating, we will not be able to do that. So therefore, I mean, there is different religions actually. These religions are help for people to try to understand and relate to God. Because on our own, just by thinking, one will not come anywhere. It's too complicated and too hopeless. But if you can find a person who he is already understood something about God, that person can tell you exactly, how you will also be able to understand. And this is actually important on this day, which is called Guru Purnima, that we worship Srila Vyasadeva, who is the original guru in our disciplic succession. Not exactly original, but one of the first spiritual masters in our disciplic succession. Because in all these different literatures, he explains in detail how we can understand God. And one of the first things in order to understand God, it's that we have to understand what is the mechanism which is keeping us in this world. How did we come to this world? What are we doing here? How do we perceive things? What motivates our actions? What makes some people be very egoistic and other people be very altruistic? What is the motivation? What is there? One has to understand all that. So in the Vedas, this is explained, this process of introspection, of meditation. Because, how shall I say, if we don't understand ourselves, it's very difficult to understand God. Isn't it? I mean, if you don't know who you are, how are you going to understand God? Okay, there may be some concept, but because we are similar to God, we have similar characteristics, we must first understand ourselves. This is what we call in Vedic philosophy self-realization. And this understanding, I don't know if we'll get to this in this verse, I don't remember, but we get a little bit into this verse. But this knowledge of ourselves means basically understanding that there is something within us which is not chemical. Okay, we have this body, which is constituted of physical elements, but there is a particle within ourselves which is not material. So this is actually the first, when we read this book, Bhagavad Gita, in the second chapter. The second chapter is all about the soul. What is actually keeping the body alive? Who are we? What is this seed which is within us, which gives us life? What happens at death? It's just, the body stops functioning. Why? 1 second ago, it was functioning, what happened actually? So, all these things are explained in the Vedic literatures. It's too much just to get into today, but the importance of accepting leadership, accepting an authority in spiritual life, it's, how do you say? You cannot remove it. Without accepting somebody who has some spiritual understanding, just by thinking and by speculating in different ways, one cannot reach the truth. One must get some help somewhere. And as I said, this is also why the different religions exist, to give us help and support in our understanding, in our path towards God. So every part of the complete whole is endowed with some particular energy to act. When that part forgets his particular activity, he is considered to be in Maya or illusion. Thus, from the very beginning, Isopanisad warns us to be very careful to play the part designated for us by the Lord. This does not mean that the individual soul has no initiative of his own. Because he is part and parcel of the Lord, he must partake of the initiative of the Lord as well. When one properly utilizes his initiative or active nature with intelligence, understanding that everything is the Lord's potency, he can revive his original consciousness, which was lost due to the association with Maya, the external energy. So, here in this paragraph, what are we talking about? We're talking about that what are we talking about? Now I lost myself. Yeah. How can we, okay, we are here in the material world, we are in material consciousness, we don't know anything about God. So how do we change that? So the first thing we can do, which the only thing which we are actually in control of, this is our desire. Yeah? If you have a desire to understand God, to understand, normally we don't use the word God, but because Isopanisad uses the word God, I am using it. But normally we say Krishna. If one has a desire to understand Krishna, then Krishna will help us and will lead us in a proper way so that we can understand Krishna. So the first thing in spiritual life is to have this desire. Second thing is to understand that it will be very difficult to do this alone. You can, if you don't believe me, that it's difficult to do it alone, you can read the history of philosophy. So many philosophers tried to make a conception of this material world, a proper picture of how everything, what motivates everything, how are things working, and causality and things like that. So the philosophers have tried to do that, but you don't find a coherent system. Mainly, sooner or later, they follow some path and then they find difficulties. Like here in the West we have some kind of philosophy which is called liberalism. And liberalism points out very much the rights and the value of the individual. But then when you try to follow liberalism to its ultimate goal, like now what we're seeing in modern society, we are used traditionally in the time I grew up that there is men and women. Yeah? Nowadays, this is becoming optional. This is part of the liberalism. And then when liberalism evolves, there is something which is already now that, we don't see so much in Sweden, but in America you see, there is people who identify like dogs. So when you meet them on the street, you say, hello, how are you? And they say, wow, wow, wow. They refuse to talk. Did you know that? This is called transhumanism. So liberalism, maybe it's a good philosophy to start with because it gives the power to the individual. We are persons, we have our rights, we have our idea how we'll evolve. But when we bring liberalism to its most extreme consequence, then it becomes problematic. And this is actually the same with all philosophies. So, therefore, at least for me, I found out that the Vedic explanations, they're very powerful because they explain us that we are spiritual persons, that there is a Supreme Lord, and that life has a meaning, and if we try to understand Krishna, if we try to understand God, at one point God will help us and we'll come there. Every part of the okay. Because he is part and policy, you must protect. So now here on the last paragraph, all power is obtained from the Lord. Therefore, each particular power must be utilized to execute the will of the Lord and not otherwise. The Lord can be known by one who has adopted a submissive attitude. Submissive attitude is not very popular in the modern world and should. I'm the center of the universe. Submissive means we should understand submissiveness, it's related with humility. So in spiritual life, humility is needed, because if we don't understand that we need help, then it will be very difficult to get help from somebody in spiritual life or in anything in life. So the Lord can be known by one who has adopted a submissive attitude. Perfect knowledge means knowing the Lord in all his features, knowing his potency, and knowing how these potencies work by his will. These matters are exclusively described by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the essence of all Upanishads. So Bhagavad Gita is this book, the Song of the Lord. So what Isopanisad is telling us here is that there is a plan for all of us. Everybody came to this world for a reason. Yeah? We all have a mission. We are not here by chance. We all have a mission. And by developing our relationship with God, we'll gradually come to understand that mission. And that mission, part of that mission, the main part of that mission is actually to understand God. What are we doing here? Why did we come to this material world? What will happen after death? Where will we go? Is there anything after that, or there is nothing? Everything will be finished. These questions we must ask, and the Vedas have very interesting and very revealing answers to these questions. So if we want to be in harmony with the universe, we have to start by creating harmony with the creator of the universe. Actually, our spiritual master Prabhupada, he always gave the example of the United Nations. You know the United Nations. Maybe they should be called these United Nations. Because they're just... So he said, they call it United Nations, but every year there is more countries. Where is the union? They just divided. Because they're trying to, how to say, they're trying to understand how to manage this world without understanding what is the origin of this world, who owns everything. Like, let's say now there is like this big discussion about immigration. And if I understand that everything belongs to God, we actually don't perceive other people as strangers. Yeah? But if I think I own this land, this is mine, and you come here. Actually, Srila Prabhupada, he called this dog mentality. You know, if you have the dog in the yard, and you go near the yard, the dog will bark at you. This is my area, you don't come in here. So this is a little bit, if we don't understand that everything belongs to God, and we are all equal in the eyes of God, then it's very difficult to create harmony in this world. And we see that even the liberal and humanistic philosophy has developed so much, we see actually that there is some people say there is more wars nowadays in the world than it ever was. You know, they are so sophisticated. They can make computers. They can make whatever. Maybe the computer is the most sophisticated thing they can do. But they can make so many sophisticated technique. But they cannot solve the basic problem, is that they're behaving in the same way as an animal, like the dog. You come near the dog, he barks. No, you don't come here, this is mine. So, so spiritual life is important, and actually we can see that when people become less and less religious, society gets more and more problems, more and more criminals, because people think there is no God, I'm just chemicals, let me get as much money as I need as quick as possible, let me kill this person, is also chemicals. You know, it just becomes completely absurd. So the modern society has no values. It has lost all the values, and therefore it's becoming so problematic, you know, that people don't anymore, they have no, how do you say, not security, but they don't have their peace of mind. You know, one is always threatened by different things happening in society. Like wars, you know, we have wars in so many places in the world. I read, actually in this United Nations, there is 90 wars going on right now in the world, 90. And war means, you know, people are shooting at each other, killing, bombing. And this is because there is not this higher understanding that we are connected by our relationship with Krishna, with God. So I will finish here. I already talked long enough. Oi. So if you want to make a question or a comment, you are welcome. You understood something?
Yeah.
It's a little bit complicated because it's a little bit old English. Even translation is a little bit complicated, and even for me, I mean, when I have the book, I had to read sentences 3 or 4 times, sometimes, to understand what is being talked about. You have this book here?
Yeah.
In English or Swedish?
Swedish, I think, too, but in
Mm-hmm. Yes, please.
Think of the lecture. You told that we need to develop, to have this desire to become Krishna conscious or approach Krishna. How do people develop this desire to become, to want to be Krishna?
It's a very good question because I didn't mention it. But we have in our philosophy something which was given by Lord Chaitanya, which is the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra. So this mantra meditation it changes the way, I mean, why we have certain desires. We have certain desires because of the way we perceive the world. Okay? So if I think that money will make me happy, I'll become greedy. So, greedy. I will develop greedy desires. So, our process in Krishna consciousness, in Hare Krishna, the first thing is that we should learn how to meditate on the Hare Krishna mantra, how to chant the Hare Krishna mantra, as we say. Because the chanting of Hare Krishna changes our heart, changes our mind, changes our perception, our intelligence, the way how we perceive the world. And in which way it changes, it removes our consciousness from matter, and it turns our consciousness towards God, towards Krishna. And this is like a miracle. Before Lord Chaitanya, this didn't happen. People were born as devotees or as non-devotees. You didn't see any changes. But Lord Chaitanya has brought from the spiritual world this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, doing this mantra meditation, then gradually our perception of the world will change, and when that changes, our desire also changes. Because we'll understand the futility of material existence. And when you understand that it's futile, you don't engage in that existence. Then you try to find out a spiritual master, and you try to make progress in spiritual life. So it was a very good question. So Hare Krishna mantra changes your desire from wherever you are situated, wherever your consciousness is situated, to a spiritual desire. But sincerity has to be there. It cannot be, because this is a mantra meditation, one can also use this mantra in a parrot-like form. That means one is chanting, because I'm referring to some meditation we do here in our temple, which is called, we recite, I don't have my bit bag with me, we recite this mantra, which is called Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This mantra, it's composed of 3 different names of God and God's energy. And by meditating, what I'm trying to explain to Dimitri's question is that by meditating on this mantra, and meditating, we do it by recitation. We recite it either loud, or sometimes we sing it together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This process, as it's described in the Veda, cleans the mirror of the mind. So the mind is originally pure, but because of association with matter, it has become, polluted. It's like, sometimes is described like a mirror with dust. When you look at the mirror, which is very dirty, you cannot see yourself. You have to clean the mirror. So this Hare Krishna mantra cleans the mirror of the heart. And with that it's meant, it purifies the way we perceive the world. And it gives a more clear understanding of different things. Nowadays we live in a society in which we are very manipulated, by advertisement, by newspapers, by TV, by music, by trends, by capitalism wants always to sell us different things. You must have a iPhone 25 or whatever. Which number? You have to have this and you have to have that. So we are always manipulated. So what the Hare Krishna mantra does, we become more self-situated. We can discover that actually happiness and satisfaction is within ourselves. We don't need so many things. This is the first effect of chanting Hare Krishna. Satisfied? Dimitri.
I want to share something. Yeah.
Please.
Thank you for the wonderful lecture. Always it is special. From my experience, like you mentioned a little before, Prabhupada, it was the first book Prabhupada
one of the first.
One of the first, yeah. And he not mentioned so much Krishna, it was just the God there. And the reason, what I hear it was like not everyone can get it directly, the Krishna and the God in the form. And he tried to bring the philosophy to the time where we are now and to connect connect it and everyone to get much more easy to understand. And maybe not everyone can go directly to the mantra in beginning. Myself, it was like I quest a lot of things, like you mentioned in beginning. Through the question, it is coming more understanding, learning. And after I give up, I saw more I am learning, more I cannot see all what exists and it is. And just I let the gods to guide me or to be in this. And after Krishna came and all open up, the mantra. And I think, to question, it is one other thing I advise, for the people to question everything it is possible.
Very good. There is also one book by Srila Prabhupada which is called Questions and Answers. There is a devotee whose name is Brahmatirtha. He was making questions to Prabhupada. He was a scientist, I think a physicist. And then when he made all these questions, they recorded, and Prabhupada said, make a book out of it. Probably you have read it. Perfect questions, perfect answers. You have read it? No, but you know about it. You do? Oh,
A little bit.
very nice.
She got it yesterday.
Yes.
I am translating for Albania now.
Uh-huh.
And what it is interesting, I shared yesterday. In English, it is I not find so much comfortable in my language. It is much more in Swedish how they translate it, much more comfortable for the people to get what it is about. And sometimes we can be a little flexible, with the translation and how we bring to everyone.
I don't know BBT.
Philosophy.
I don't know BBT policies.
It is amazing. Yes.
So this devotee Brahmatirtha, I think he was a scientist, physicist or something. He was not mathematician, physicist, I think. And he made all these questions, and he was very satisfied. And he became a very prominent devotee in our movement, in Hare Krishna movement. He worked together. We have some kind of scientific institute which is called Bhaktivedanta Institute, where they analyze different scientific theories, like the theory of evolution, Darwinism, the Big Bang, it's another, the structure of the universe, consciousness. What is consciousness? Because in science there is not an exact explanation of consciousness. They know a little bit, but I mean, what is, you have a protein, they say you have a protein, and then you add one atom of oxygen, and that protein becomes conscious. Boing. Conscious means you know that you exist, and you react to the environment and so on. So what actually happened? It is this oxygen which is the consciousness. I mean, it's a very deep question. So these kind of questions, they are analyzed and studied in this Bhaktivedanta Institute. They also have an interesting publication which regarding Darwinism, and this publication says that the age of the universe is not enough to explain how you come from an amoeba to a human being. You have to have a mutation like every 10 seconds, for 40 million years. And we don't see a mutation ever. Yeah. I don't know, there is a recorded history of mankind, maybe 5,000 years from the Egyptians and India, and you don't see any mutations. So there is interesting things there, both mathematical and physics and biology. Mohini?
Guru Purnima, is that every year?
That's every year. That's the appearance day of Srila Vyasadeva.
But is it in July or it can be different?
I mean, our calendar is a moon calendar, so it shifts.
So it's different moons.
But the moon is always the same, because it's a moon calendar. We have a moon calendar, so the moon always looks the same. It's always orange on Guru Purnima.
It's usually
It's usually July.
July.
Because today
It's
is
the biggest moon.
my grandchild is turned 20 today, so it's a really good day.
Guru Purnima.
Yeah. But it's a special full moon today. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the closest to the.
the closest today.
Guru Purnima and Guru Purnima. They are
Okay.
both
Okay.
moons.
Yeah, yeah.
Guru Purnima is white moon,
Yeah.
big, and Guru Purnima is big, orange moon. But the moon is quite low on the horizon.
Yeah, it's very low. So you have to be somewhere high to see it. It doesn't go. I mean, it goes on the sky and it gets smaller, but on the horizon.
So this is Vyasadeva's
Yeah.
appearance.
Very good day.
Okay? So thank you very much for your patience.
Offer our deep thankful for all participation and everything. Locan Prabhu and Tulasi Prabhu come and help us and support us in this place here in Malmo. And together we chant aloud Hare Krishna mantra and we give our thanks
Okay.
for all what you do. Thank you.
We chant together?
Yes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Now we do little art.
Yeah. Mohini, I think. No? Kameshwari? Kameshwari, want to do art too? Because I don't have dhoti, I have trousers. Oh, Dimitri also. You are here. You are in the first line.
Maybe to